Elaborative rehearsal, much more effective for transferring information into long-term memory. Elaborative rehearsal involves finding or creating an association between information in short-term memory and information previously stored in long-term memory. The difference in the effectiveness of these rehearsal strategies is sometimes referred to as a depth of processing effect. Long-term memory. The mental storage system responsible for storing information on a relatively permanent basis. Long-term memory is assumed to be unlimited in capacity for all practical purposes. The phrase "you can't teach an old dog new tricks" does not refer to a long-term memory capacity limitation. The duration of long-term memory is assumed to be permanent. Forgetting is most often characterized as a retrieval failure, rather than the idea that the information disappears from the mind. Oftentimes, the learning of new information can interfere with the recall of older, related information, retroactive interference. And older information can interfere with our ability to learn new information, proactive interference. 7 modern areas of investigation. 1. Attention. 2. Automatic and strategic processing. 3. Bottom-up versus top-down processing. 4. Representation of knowledge. 5. Metacognition. 6. Non-conscious or unconscious processing. 7. Levels of analysis. Attention. A fundamental topic in cognitive psychology. Attention is responsible for a. Transferring information between memory systems. b. Controlling the processing of information in working memory. Human beings are assumed to have only a finite amount of attentional resources available to them at any one time. Attention is sometimes referred to as the executive controller in models of mental processing. Executive controller, the mental structure charge of allocating attentional resources. Automatic and strategic processing. Due to our amazing capacity for learning, we can often overcome processing limitations by making behaviors so automatic that they do not require conscious processing. For example, you have no choice but to read and comprehend this sentence. Why? Because processing visual information known as writing and translating the visual input into meaningful concepts has become automized since the age of 2 or 3. Hooked on phonics, sounding out words, a very strategic and deliberate way to learn phoneme combination. Other automatized behavior. Walking. Processing auditory language information. Tying your shoes. Buttoning buttons. As a particular behavior changes from being completely conscious and strategic to automatic, the attentional resources required to complete that behavior become significantly reduced. When you have 2 or more highly automated behaviors, you can engage in parallel processing, performing both behaviors simultaneously. When you are trying to perform 2 strategic behaviors, you must frequently stick with sequential processing. Sometimes, our short-term memory retrieves information so automatically from long-term memory we have little conscious awareness of our thought process. Fast process tasks, tasks which rely on highly practiced mental processes, show little conscious involvement. Slow process tasks take from several seconds or more and rely heavily on conscious resources. Isn't 82. Data-driven, bottom-up, versus conceptually driven. Top-down, processing. Is your behavior driven by your sensory perceptions of the immediate environment, or is it driven by all of your past experiences in similar situations? The more experience we have with a particular situation, the more we will let prior experience and behavior guide our current actions. Golfing and skiing are 2 sports which can illustrate the distinction between automatic and controlled processing and bottom-up versus top-down processing. Representation of knowledge. How is knowledge represented in the brain? For example, think of the word chair. You can recognize this visual pattern of letters, you can recognize the auditory pattern associated with this stimulus. You can conjure up a mental image of what this stimulus looks like. You can probably remember specific chair-related stories as well. Visual, verbal, auditory, and autobiographical information is all stored in long-term memory and ready to be recalled when you see this stimulus in some form. Distinctions in memory and knowledge types. Tulving distinguishes between two memory types: episodic and semantic. Episodic memory, your autobiographical memories. Semantic memory, contains a person's general world knowledge, including knowledge of language. People with psychogenic amnesia have difficulties retrieving episodic memories, while their semantic memories remain largely intact. Anderson identified two differences in types of knowledge: declarative knowledge, basic facts, and conceptual knowledge. Beats are read. Andrew Johnson was the 17th president. Procedural knowledge, knowing how to do something, tying your shoes, arithmetic problems sometimes, because our procedural knowledge becomes so automatic, it is difficult to verbalize the specific steps we go through when completing a highly automatic procedure. Metacognition. Awareness and monitoring of one's own cognitive state or condition.